This is Story Recapped. Today, I'm going to explain a sci-fi horror film called Leviathan. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. 16,000 feet under the Atlantic Ocean, the Tri-Oceanic Mining Corporation extracts silver and precious metals. At Mining Shack number 7, the crew fantasizes about food from home, so Stephen Beck, the geologist, directs them back to work. Elizabeth Williams delivers their haul, so Beck calls them back to Shack number 7. With only 3 days left of their 3-month operation, the crew is excited to go home soon. On their way back, Tony De Jesus Rodero starts to breathe heavily. His extraction suit's rebreather malfunctions, and he's losing oxygen. Beck calls their doctor for help, but he isn't in his station, so Justin Jones suggests sharing oxygen with De Jesus. However, Beck warns that an implosion could occur if they set it up incorrectly. With no other options, Beck orders De Jesus back to the shack. With lights alerting his worsening condition, De Jesus gets nervous, but Beck urges him that he won't die today. The heavy metal doors of the shack finally open, and the crew shuffles inside. Beck activates the lift lock and raises the miners out of the water. He runs to their port, nicknamed the Swamp, and finds De Jesus unconscious. He knocks on his helmet and De Jesus wakes up. The crew gathers around the mess hall where GP Cobbs complains about the rebreathers. Williams says that Thompson shouldn't be in his station, but Jones blames Beck's poor command that makes the doctor disregard him. Bridget Bowman breaks the tension by announcing how she lost her bonus on stock investments. Buzz Sixpack Parrish recounts how a previous co-worker was crushed under the water pressure just because of one little hole in his suit. He crushes an empty can in front of De Jesus, showing what could have happened to him, and jokes about him imploding in his pants. Pissed, De Jesus tries to pummel Sixpack. In his room, Beck practices his speech regarding the recent incident and even assumes responsibility for the doctor's absence, though he isn't satisfied with it and seeks advice from a self-help book. He's interrupted when the pipes above him start groaning. In the messy hall, the crew hears it too, and Bowman complains about the place falling apart just as they're about to go home. Williams notes that it's raining on the surface but assures everyone that the weather will be clear during their pickup. Beck arrives and they quiet down. He checks on De Jesus and tells him to check in with Thompson. Sixpack and Jones complains about Thompson not being at his post when they needed him, so Beck promises that he'll handle him. Beck then brings up that everyone lacks shack maintenance time, but the crew complains about getting shack duty just after a full shift. However, Beck notes that they can do their maintenance time today and make tomorrow their day off. This uplifts the crew's spirit. Thompson arrives, casually making jokes about his busy schedule. Upon hearing that De Jesus' suit malfunctioned, Thompson turns to Beck, daring him to say something. Beck sternly reminds him that he must be in the control room during operations, yet Thompson jokes that he'll cut his golf game short. Later, the crew does their maintenance duty. During this, Cobb shows Jones how he fixes the rattling air duct with chewing gum. Meanwhile, Williams does maintenance on Sixpack's suit when a sea spider jumps out of his compartment, startling her. Williams immediately kills it and curses at Sixpack over comms. Sixpack laughs before teasing her with his surprise. At his office, Beck reports to the corporation's CEO, Martin. She's happy that the mining is progressing well, but Beck wants to return to his research. Martin brings up his report on Thompson's insubordination, but notes that the doctor has an impressive resume despite an incident where a vaccine he created killed people. She assures Beck the issue was blown out of proportion, but offers to take care of Thompson for him. Beck declines, saying he can handle it. Later, when Jones asks about Bowman's stocks, Williams asks her to check on Tri-Oceanic since she invested in it. Sixpack arrives and apologizes to Williams about the spider prank, which she quickly accepts. Sixpack then heads to his bunk and gets comfy while staring at a poster. The mood is ruined when he feels something under his pillow and screams, finding the spider. He furiously confronts Williams, but Beck stops the fight and assigns them to work tomorrow as punishment. The next day, they dig up a load of silver using explosives. During this, however, Sixpack's cables get stuck, leading to him falling into a ridge. Beck loses visuals and contact on Sixpack, so he switches to Williams. Despite her limited oxygen, Williams decides to go after him. She goes through a field of tube worms while the crew is alerted to the events. Williams struggles through the field and soon finds a Russian ship named Leviathan. While Williams enters the ship, Bowman checks the records and discovers that the Leviathan is an active ship that should be in the Baltic Sea, not the Atlantic. Williams continues inside and opens a rusty door leading to the infirmary, which is full of skeletons. While she investigates, Sixpack finally appears, cheering and holding a vault in his arms. Back at the shack, the crew rummages through the vault's contents, while Sixpack complains about being forced to surrender his loot. However, he spots a liquor flask from one of the boxes, which he hides with only Bowman noticing. Jones finds a videotape, and Thompson, the only person who knows Russian, tells them it's a captain's log. He also translates that all the files inside the vault are about deceased personnel, dampening the mood. Williams also finds a vodka bottle, but Beck impounds it. Later, Beck and Thompson watch the videotape and learn that the Leviathan's crew suffered from a tropical virus. In the video, the captain's door suddenly opened, so he quickly ended the log. Thompson wonders why the captain left his logs and why another Russian Leviathan ship is in the Atlantic. He views the recording from Williams' video feed, noting that the ship's damages suggest a torpedo hit. He believes the ship was sunk on purpose, but Beck disregards it. Meanwhile, Bowman steals Beck's records so they can use his social security to unlock his vault and claim the vodka bottle. While Williams heads off for a jog, the crew gathers around to drink but realizes that Beck switched it with water. Later, Bowman finds Sixpack hiding in his bunk with a flask and shares the liquor with him. During Williams' jog, she finds Beck in the swamp. She helps him fix the lift, then asks him why he's working there. Beck agrees that he doesn't belong there, but since he's a geologist, the corporation figured he'd be able to run the place. Williams thinks he's handling things well, but asks if he busted Sixpack because of her. He looks into her eyes and says maybe. After assuring him that she's okay, Williams asks how he knew they'd get the vodka, and he says that it's what he would have done. This convinces Williams that he fits in with them more than he thinks. On their last day, Sixpack gets sick, so Beck asks Martin to evacuate him, but she explains that an evacuation the day before their pickup would stain their record. Still, she asserts that it's Beck's call. Sixpack's symptoms worsen, so Thompson takes a skin sample and discovers that his cells are mutating. He consults medical marines, but their best guess is genetic alteration. Soon, Sixpack flatlines just as the crew returns from mining. Thompson reveals the news to Beck and tells him to check on the body. When Beck does so, he sees a rash spreading throughout Sixpack's body. Fearing an outbreak, Thompson requests to examine the crew while keeping Sixpack's death a secret. The doctor checks most of the crew but doesn't find anyone else with symptoms. When Bowman arrives to be examined, Thompson gets called to Beck's office, so he lets her wait inside the infirmary. Beck and Thompson report the disease to Martin, but she downplays it. Thompson argues that it's already killed a man, but she reminds him that he's been wrong before. Beck points out that according to their manual, they can opt for medical evacuation, so he orders Martin to send someone to pick them up. However, there's a hurricane coming their way, so Martin promises to send someone in 12 hours. Meanwhile, Williams finds Bowman sick, so she tends to her while Jones looks for Thompson. Inside the medbay, he finds Sixpack's body and tells him about the day, not knowing that he's dead. When Sixpack's legs shifts, Jones apologizes and tells him to go to sleep. After Jones leaves, Sixpack's body continues to move. While Jones and Williams look for the doctor, Bowman uses the bathroom and discovers her hair is falling out. She goes to the medbay to talk to Sixpack but pauses when she sees his deformed arm. Realization dawns on her as she touches the scales on her neck. By the time Thompson finds her in the showers, Bowman is dead with a slit wrist. They transfer her body back into the infirmary, not noticing that something lurks inside the medbay. With two dead, Thompson reveals the virus to the crew, and Beck admits that their pickup will be delayed for 12 hours. Just as the crew gets riled up, they hear a crash. Beck and Thompson check the infirmary to find Sixpack's and Bowman's bodies mutating into one. Horrified, they immediately put the corpse in a body bag for disposal. As they're carrying it to the swamp, De Jesus feels movement inside. While they argue about opening it, a claw rips through the bag, scratching Cobbs. Panicked, the crew stands back while Beck pulls the bag into the lift. The crew watches in horror as the writhing mass is lowered, not realizing that a mutated flesh slips through. After the horrific events, Williams cleans herself in the shower, fearing infection. Hoping to make sense of the mutation, Thompson and Beck check the recorded feed from the Leviathan's infirmary and find a human skeleton that's larger than normal. Thompson deduces that the ship tampered with genetics and suspects that the company knew this might happen. He argues that the company is more interested in money and won't risk losing investments just to save them. Later, Jones and Beck rummage through Sixpack's bunk to find the cause and discover the flask, figuring that this is what contaminated him. The discovery sends the crew into a panic. Jones thinks that the Leviathan crew was being experimented on by putting something in their drinks. When nobody reacts the same, he lashes out at De Jesus, destroying a puzzle he just completed. De Jesus shouts at Jones, pointing out that there's nothing they can do as it's already happened. While Williams jogs to distract herself, the mutated flesh grows into a worm. Jones later apologizes to De Jesus, offering to fix his puzzle together. After he agrees, Jones leaves while De Jesus searches for food. He opens a cabinet and a creature attacks him. As it eats through his chest, De Jesus crashes outside where he begs Jones for help. However, Jones gets scared and locks him in, assigning Cobbs to keep watch before calling the others. Jones, Beck, and Thompson soon return only to find the door torn open. Cobbs arrives with a chainsaw and Jones berates him for leaving. Suddenly, the lights go out. Noticing that Williams isn't around, they split up to search for her. Beck and Jones find Williams' scarf washed up in the swamp, then jumps when she surprises them from above. They tell her about De Jesus and gear up with tools to use as weapons. Thompson and Cobbs arrive at the infirmary and find their blood bags missing. While Thompson checks inside, Cobbs puts his chainsaw down to check the damaged wires. A tentacle suddenly wraps Cobbs' leg, knocking him down. Thompson hears his screams, so he takes Cobbs' chainsaw and cuts him loose. With the crew together, Thompson notes that the mutants feed on blood and likely retain memories of the people it absorbs since it remembers where the blood bags were. He asserts that the Russians probably sank the Leviathan to contain the mutation. Hearing this, Cobbs urges them to evacuate, but with the hurricane, they could get ripped to pieces. Instead, Beck suggests luring the mutant and flushing it down. Using their blood, Beck creates a path to lure the mutant to him and Jones, who are armed with flamethrowers. Meanwhile, the others stay in the mess hall, but Cobbs starts complaining about the scratch from earlier. Thompson leaves to get him medication but heads to the control room instead. He writes a record of what's happening and releases the emergency escape bubbles, leaving them stranded. While Beck and Jones prepare to ambush the mutant, Thompson returns to the mess hall like nothing happened. Cobb complains about being cold, and when Williams turns to him, she sees his chest thumping erratically. She backs away as Thompson approaches the patient, only for Cobb's arm to block him involuntarily. Thompson barely holds off Cobb's arm and sees a mouth full of vicious teeth in his palm. Williams runs for help but encounters the mutant instead. Hearing her scream, Beck and Jones search for her and snatches her to the side. She tells them about Cobb's mutating, so they decide to use the escape bubbles to leave instead of facing two mutants. Unknown to them, Thompson has escaped but is also mutating. In the control room, they find that the escape bubbles are gone. They see Thompson's message and figure that he released the bubbles to contain the virus. The mutant suddenly pounds at the heavy doors, so Beck sends an SOS signal. Martin contacts them and announces that their evacuation is delayed further as the hurricane has settled in their location. They have no choice but to wait. With 48 hours to wait, Beck tells the others to rest while he keeps watch for the night. After a while of no activity, he checks the weather reports, but they aren't available. He and Williams deduce that the company already knows what's happening but is just delaying while they decide what to do. To prove so, Williams searches for updates for her company investment and learns that stocks are down due to a mining accident, and they've been declared as deceased. Suddenly, tentacles tamper with the oxygen supply, and the shack system alerts the crew. Jones figures that the mutants destroyed the duct that Cobbs repaired, which means that the mutants are luring them there. Despite knowing it's a trap, they must fix it, otherwise the shack will implode. With 8 minutes before the implosion, Beck and Jones head down to fix the vent while Williams keeps watch. However, the air duct is beyond repair, driving Jones into a panic. He remembers a backup air valve at the swamp, but a mutated Thompson starts to attack before they leave. They shoot blazes of fire at it before escaping. The system activates auto locks on the doors, so Williams runs to stop them from closing. When tentacles surround her, Beck rips out cable wires to electrocute the tentacles below. The doors continue closing, so they rush inside. The flooring caves around Williams, so she jumps and uses the overhead pipes to bolt herself across, but it breaks down. Beck runs to save her while Jones keeps the door open. Williams reaches an arm up to Beck and he carries her out of danger. Williams runs to the door, but Beck gets captured by a mutant. Jones prevents Williams from going back and instead points Beck to the handsaw nearby. Beck nudges it with his feet to reach it and cut the mutant to escape. They arrive at the swamp, but Jones can't close the air valve. With no time to save the shack, Beck suggests using the suits and the oxygen tanks to propel them to the surface. Williams and Jones get into their suits, but a mutant breaks in. Beck activates the lift lock to get the others underwater while he deals with the mutant. With the others gone, Beck spills gasoline, but pauses when he sees De Jesus' face on the mutant, begging him to kill him. Beck then hurries back to the lift and into a suit, but the lift lock jams. With the mutant approaching, Beck lights the place on fire and forces the lift down. The lift descends and Beck gets into a suit while the mutant tries to reach him. Finally, the lift makes a full descent, crushing the mutant as it does. Beck escapes and the shack explodes in a great ball of fire. Using the oxygen tanks, the three float up to the surface. Soon, their suits disengage, allowing them to swim to the surface where they meet clear skies. Sharks start to circle them, but the rescue helicopter scares them away. As the helicopter arrives, a mutant rises to the surface. Jones holds it back to let the others escape but drowns when it takes him underwater. When Williams is safe inside the helicopter, Beck swims back to the mutant and throws a stick of dynamite into its mouth. Beck is pulled back into the helicopter while the mutant explodes in bloody bits. Soon, they land in a cargo ship where Martin greets them. She plays innocent and asks them how they feel, so Beck punches her to make himself feel a lot better.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.